Do you remember back in the early 2000s how we had a big format war between Blu Ray and HDDVD, and it was pretty serious there for a while, to the point where Sony and Microsoft even got involved with their game consoles. Of course, the PS3 had Blu Ray, and the Xbox 360 had an add-on that would allow it to play HD DVD discs. Well, I figured, you know what, I don't have enough useless stuff around here, so let's take a look at the HD DVD player add-on for the Xbox 360. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. I wanted to get this because I do have memories of one of my friends having this, and I never really understood why necessarily, because I never saw them really use it. They gave me an explanation, which I'll get to here in a little bit as we're trying this out, because today I wanted to hook it up to the Blade system that I have so we can go back to like 2006 when this thing released and see how it looks there. I also wanted to open this up because there is kind of a theory I have for what could have been in an alternate timeline where HDDVD won out, and if Microsoft was actually preparing for the Xbox 360 Elite to have a little bit more than that HDMI port. First though, let's quickly talk a little bit about what I have here, and this is the Xbox 360 HDDVD player bundle that came with King Kong. At the time, they at least released it with a movie, so you could, try out your HDDVD player that you bought. It released in November of 2006. That's right alongside the PlayStation 3. And it's pretty obvious why. HDDVD was head on at that point with Blu Ray, and they were doing whatever they could to try to win out in that format war. We know Blu Ray ended up winning, and honestly, this went out to retailers November 2006. I think it was a year and a half later that the HDDVD format was basically abandoned by Toshiba, and they essentially saw the writing on the wall that Blu Ray was going to be the default format, and there was no point then in continuing to produce HDDVD players that were upwards of, I'm not even kidding, $800 to $900 for like the high-end player. In fact, that was why we saw Sony position the PS3 the way they did, where the PS3, having Blu Ray in it, was kind of seen as that default system. If you want a Blu Ray player, go ahead and buy the PS3, because even at $600 and some of the functionality with it, it felt kind of cheap with everything you got. So looking around the box here, there's the shot of our Xbox 360 add-on for HDDVD. They made it look like a small Xbox 360 system. It certainly went in line with the design philosophy they had for the 360 at that time in 2006. There's a little sticker that they put on for the King Kong movie there. On the back here, they have their really funny catchphrase or slogan, the look and sound of perfect. Yeah. And then we can see what we get in the bundle here, which includes the HDDVD player and even a remote. Now, you did also need a USB cable to hook this up, as well as a separate power source. So you had even more cables running all over the place. It looks like at the top we have our movie. The thing I remember about HDDVD was undoubtedly kind of the maroon red plastics that they had. I still prefer Blu Ray with kind of that nice blue glowing plastic, but they obviously wanted to make it look a lot different. They also have these locking tabs on the side. You had to kind of kick open here to actually get at the movie itself, which we can see right here, King Kong. And the bottom has a lot of like weird smudging to it, but I think it should work fine. All right, then we have the player itself, which we could take a quick look at here. We have the same chrome bezel on the front for the disk drive to match up with that Xbox 360, eject button here, HDDVD logo on the front. All the way on the back here, we have power input for that separate AC adapter. We have two USB ports, because remember, it hooks into the Xbox 360 using a USB port. So they figured, well, we're gonna take one away. We have to drop one here and then also put an extra one on. So you kind of got a USB hub out of it as well. And it looks like we have locking tabs. I can only assume they were thinking, oh, you can put your Wi-Fi adapter on here if you'd like. We have a few extra pieces here. We have our remote, which I know a lot of people bought this separately because the front of the Xbox 360 had an IR port on it, but I guess they figured, hey, with this bundle, we may as well complete the multimedia experience here. We have this little Xbox button at the top to kind of turn the system on, then you have like DVD menu, title, display. This was more or less just set up to navigate those HDDVD menus. We also have our AC adapter, which was another brick. We already had one massive brick to go along with the Xbox 360, but well, here's another one for you. Then we have our USB cable here to run from the HDDVD to the system. We have a manual, and then what looks like the player installation disc. The manual's pretty straightforward, although this is pretty funny in this passage here. They do talk about what I was assuming with the clips there on the back of that HDDVD player, because they expect you to use the USB port on the back of your system just so it looks cleaner rather than plugging it into the front USB ports. It says you can free up your console's rear USB port for use with the HDDVD player by connecting the wireless adapter to the back of the HDDVD player instead of the console. Note, this will not establish a wireless connection between your console and your HDDVD player. I guess they had to spell that out just in case people thought that wireless antenna on the top of the HDDVD player you dropped in would then send stuff back and forth to the console. Well, I have the HDDVD player plugged in. It's also connected to the back of the Xbox 360, which I guess the nice thing is I have this wired 360 controller and I have it plugged into the back of the HDDVD player. So I have a nice little set of cables going here, but it popped right up, and you can see on the blade system where it says open tray, I have kind of split into two different sections here. That circle is just kind of cut in half. The top one is for the Xbox 360, the system, and then the bottom one is for the HDDVD player. So technically, the 360 now has two different disk drives that it can manage, which brings me to what was described to me as the biggest benefit of the HDDVD player. And that is, you don't have to take the movie out when you want to put a game disc in. You can just leave the movie and you're watching on DVD or HDDVD here, and then you just change your game disc out like normal there. I don't know if that's worth the price of the HDDVD add-on, which was coming in at $200, but I mean, technically it's an advantage. Now, the unfortunate thing is the installation disc is not working on this Xbox 360. It just doesn't read it. So I'm kind of stuck right now out of the box, because if I go to play HDDVD, it then kicks back and tells me I need some sort of update, which I guess is on this disc. I don't know, maybe I can go online and it's still there somewhere, but I mean, this gets the point across here. You can technically do HDDVD or DVD here, and then Madden 08 there. Oh, and this does work on the Xbox 360 Slim with a later iteration of the dashboard. They relocated it from where it was with the Blade system, apparently, to the video tab and multimedia. So you just have to go over there and pick HDDVD and start playing it. But with all that done, let's see if we can get into the HDDVD drive itself and take a look as to what exactly is happening in here. To my knowledge, there are tabs around the edges here that I have to kind of break free, and the side will come off. Okay, so here's where we are with this. It does kind of come apart like a 360 where the faceplate has to come off first, this being the front. There are some really annoying tabs here though, so I basically just had to take this and kind of just work around until most of them were free, and then it sort of just popped off there. Funny enough, they do use a very similar warranty sticker on the front of this, where this should come apart. They put this little sticker here to see if you decided to modify or tamper with it at all. And they dropped a couple of torque screws here. Looks like we have 3 of them. And there we go. The side pops off, and we have our Toshiba drive, which the interesting part about this that had me speculating at least a little bit, this is very similar to the Toshiba drive that will come equipped in some of these Xbox 360 systems. They had a bunch of different manufacturers for their DVD drives in their Xbox consoles. There's a BenQ drive, Toshiba, Samsung. But when I saw this, I was a little surprised, because it kind of looked like they had outfitted one of the drives with an HDDVD setup with the laser and all this, and just kind of put it in this enclosure that would then run through USB to the system. Now, it's pretty obvious that when you look at this drive, they did some modification to make it all work together, and I still think this may have just been not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction, but a quick product line to try to get it out the door next to the PlayStation 3, just to try to help HDDVD along. See, at the time with Sony on one side, they used Java for their menu system, whereas HDDVD uses HDI, which was from Microsoft. So they were, I mean, they were pretty much in the trenches with Toshiba to a degree for HDDVD, and it makes sense why they would rather push this over Blu-ray. And I mean, Blu-ray won out, and now you have an Xbox Series system with Blu-ray compatibility. But looking at what they have here in this disk drive, I wonder if there was a possibility that they were working to have the Xbox 360 Elite even kind of outfitted with one of these internally. And I'm not sure if there was ever any mention of that happening in an interview or something, but if you happen to find one, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I would be curious to hear from maybe someone who was working within Microsoft at that time, if that was something that was at least planned out on a whiteboard somewhere. I will say there are some interesting uses for the HDDVD drive here for the Xbox 360 because it is compatible with a PC. You can hook it up through USB, and what people were doing, to my knowledge, is using it to rip their HDDVD library to their PC, because you would get pretty good quality out of those releases in that format. And I think it even had Mac support, although there was no driver. It just happened to work on Mac as is. On PC, there was a driver, and I think there were even programs that would just play the HDDVDs completely from this disk drive. And HDDVDs like these aren't that expensive anymore, so I could see some people who want to maybe build up an HDDVD collection just to have it, maybe seek out one of these Xbox 360 HDDVD add-ons to use on their PC. And here is our HDDVD sled, diode, the whole deal. And it's weird because it's kind of at an angle. Like, usually you'll see this straight on with the spindle here, but now it's off just a little bit. It's crooked slightly. I don't know if that's how HDDVDs were set up normally. It's an interesting look here. This does very much so remind me of the Toshiba drive that we have in the Xbox 360 now. Maybe that was just an easy way for them to kind of go about doing this, but like the locking mechanism, as I just showed there, it's all very, very similar. Although some of the parts that I'm looking at are slightly different, but the form factor here probably could have fit inside an Xbox 360. The board itself is different that they have here. As you can see, even the connector on the back, it's not SATA as we have with typical Xbox 360 drives, but I feel like that probably wouldn't have been a difficult thing for them to figure out. And I'll admit, I'm not like the biggest video file person who's all about getting the highest quality picture and stuff for watching movies, because I just stream this stuff anyway, right? But this would have at least had an impact on the gaming side. If you think about it, the Xbox 360 with the DVD support that it had, it worked. And in some cases, it was nice because you didn't have to install games. They loaded relatively quickly for what they were, and the media was cheap to produce. Like, putting your game on a DVD was much cheaper than having to put it on a Blu-ray for the PlayStation 3. But some games did legitimately suffer from having to use or at least fit into the confines of a DVD. I'm thinking of, as an example, Final Fantasy 13. When that came out, it was on 3 different DVDs for the Xbox 360, but on the PS3, it was a single Blu-ray, and the quality for those videos and the cutscenes and stuff were significantly better on the PlayStation 3. Come to find out later on, after people went through the data for it, it was over 30 gigabytes of video, and the rest was gameplay, which amounted to less than 10 gigabytes in size. But when you start to see some of those drawbacks to a limited format like DVD, and then you can see what something like Blu-ray or even HDDVD would have been able to do, it does make you wonder about an alternate timeline where HDDVD and Blu-ray were fighting out long enough for an Xbox 360 to show up with that support. Although I guess that might have been frustrating to publishers who had to figure out if they were gonna put it on HDDVD or DVD, but technically it would have been compatible anyway, because you could have just put your game on a DVD and it would have functioned in the HDDVD drive, but just, I guess, more options and the ability to offer a higher quality product then. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it here for the HDDVD add-on for the Xbox 360. It was an odd time in gaming, certainly, with Blu-ray breaking onto the scene with the PlayStation 3 and Microsoft doing their best to back HDDVD, but it was pretty obvious then, I guess, even who was going to end up winning, and here we are now with Blu-ray pretty much across the board, but even that is kinda on its way out, with physical media starting to fizzle out in lieu of just digital downloads for all of our games, or even cartridges now with Nintendo. But An interesting time nonetheless. Let me know though if you had the HDDVD add-on for your Xbox 360 and if you still use it now and maybe you've built up a pretty sizable HDDVD collection. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.